Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A light sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. We have a live studio audience of a very ugly-looking bug. Yes,
excellent.
Just so you know,
Would you like a moment?
Jorge decided that he's going to join us and he's going to hang on my wall for a while.
Yeah, I have a shoe.
Yeah.
I'm a shoe.
Kinda big. I'm afraid he kind of has a mafia family somewhere.
That's
but
fine.
I digress. So hi, everybody.
Yeah, if all of a sudden Jen goes silent during the show, well,
Yeah.
we can tell if the bug attached to Jen by one of two ways. Either we'll hear a loud eep, or Jen will just go silent because the bug has killed her.
This is true.
Yeah.
Probably, by that eep.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably
Jumped off
right.
the wall and garroted her in one fell swoop. Never even got the eek back out.
Yeah.
Don't listen to them, Jorge. We're friends. We're
Yeah.
good friends. Yes.
Because that's the preferred method of killing by the mafia bug.
It's
Mafia bugs.
You're right.
Garroting.
Yep.
Nice.
It's okay. We've got you on camera. We'll let you know if you should be worried about the guy in the back seat.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You guys got my back. I like it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Awesome.
I wish I had the ability to just mute Jen at some point during the podcast because it'd be kind of funny. Like, yeah. Jen,
and then,
Jen.
They'll be like, Brian, get the cannolis.
Yeah.
If I had the capability, I would turn the camera so you could see my friend here, but unfortunately, it required way too much effort.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I've derailed the show very early on.
It's wonderful.
I'm used to that. I'm used to that on podcasts.
Yeah. You should start with some humor always.
Yeah,
this is true. Well, folks, my name is Jen, as Brian mentioned. I will be the hostess for the show tonight, and with me is Brian.
Hi.
And Henno. Hey, guys.
Good evening.
Hello.
And studio audience, Jorge.
Yeah.
Take a bow, Jorge. There we go. Nicely done. All 4, 6, 8
I was
legs.
going to say, at least you get a big applause.
Yeah.
Lots of legs there.
At least we hope so. Yeah.
So that being said, how's your week? How have you guys been? I'm sorry I wasn't here last week.
You know the rules.
Nope,
you know the rules, Jen. You skip a week, you go first.
Dang.
Right.
No, the reason I wasn't with everybody last week was we had an illness spread throughout my work team. And the woman who works midnights got ill. So I had to fill in and ended up having to do a lot of working and not a lot of sleeping. And it coincided right with the recording of the show. So I apologize. I normally don't like to put anything above my my mental health and my what I consider one of a very important part of my therapy. Yeah, that's where I was going for. My weekly therapy. In this particular case, unfortunately, work had to take precedence. So, but money does not always trump therapy, and probably shouldn't in 99.9% of the case.
True.
So.
But not just to work, but you were being of service to others, because by you doing that, you know, it allowed those people to be able to take that time to do what they should do, which is get better versus coming into work while sick.
And it did amaze me, the whole thing, because it's been an interesting couple weeks. I know I can almost hear everybody in the audience yelling at me, but I got my meds mixed up again. I'm working very hard to keep on a regular schedule, dosage, and making sure I take them every morning. I got off my schedule and I missed a day or two here or there, which kind of threw me off. Which caused, in turn, I ended up having some anxiety attacks and some wanting to leave my body experiences. I hate that feeling, and I don't know if others out there, if you guys have had this feeling, but I want to unzip my skin and actually leave my body, because I do not feel like I fit. Like me as a soul person don't feel comfortable in this human skin, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just put more lotion on.
Well, if you don't, you get the hose again. So,
yeah. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat the meats?
Jen, let me ask you a quick question before you move on here about your medicine. Do you have a routine that you do with your medicine? Like, do you keep it in the same place? Is it like you do A, B, C with the medicine? Or, like, for sake of argument, like you get up, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, take your medicine. Like, do you do an order like that with it every day?
I do. The reason I kind of got off is my cats I had them trained to want treats in the morning, and the treats are kept right next to my pills. So I would get my pills and give them the treats at the same time and stuff. Well, they've decided they don't like the treats on the hardwood floor anymore.
So now you have to put like a platter down for them or something?
No, we've gone to either have to put them on the carpet and they'll eat them off the carpet, or they don't get them at all because they're being too prissy. So, yes. That's fair. They stopped getting their treats, and when they stopped getting their treats, I stopped getting my meds because it's right next to the treats, and I stopped them. Yeah. Okay. So, dumb.
Well,
it's dumb. It's not my part.
Well, it's not necessarily. It's just that I was asking because, one of the first things that I was told was to, like, if you're going to, like, because you're supposed to try to take these kind of medicines at the same time every day,
Yes.
And part of that is just for the routine of it, so you don't forget them, so that, you remember that it's this step in your day. And that's why I've kind of done that. Like when I get up, like there's a certain place in my beginning of the day routine that my medicine goes into, and then another one at the end, before I go to bed. So that's why I was asking is, for anyone listening, it's, don't try to come up with a routine or a place in your, like if you get up and you start the coffee and then you do this, find a place in there to try to put your medicine. But if something changes, then, you may have to change where it's at in the routine and learn again. But like I have, someone I know that takes medicines, it got moved and he used to, when he first would get up, he'd go to the bathroom, brush his teeth, and then the medicine was in the bathroom, which generally is not recommended, but whatever. It's, so he would take it right then. Well, it got moved out of the bathroom, so he forgot it for 3 or 4 days because, the routine changed. So he had to change. Yeah.
And that's kind of, and my routine did change.
Right.
So, so I have to adjust.
Yeah.
I do have it right next to the coffee now, so that should help.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Keep all your medicine in one place.
And yeah, exactly. Something I will never miss in the morning is my coffee.
Well,
so.
that's actually a great reason, though, is if you are a, routine coffee drinker, it's not a terrible, I mean, obviously as long as it doesn't get too hot sitting there or whatever, but other than that, it's a great idea because it's something you do every day,
So, but, and then I had a couple family get-togethers that are just, I love everybody, and it has nothing to do with anybody else other than myself. And it's hard for people who don't have mental illness and anxiety attacks and things like that to really comprehend. But, and thankfully my husband tries very hard to get me, as I mentioned on the last show that I was on, some of the stuff that he said, but he tries very hard to be as understanding as possible. But he just doesn't get it. And I told him, I'm like, you never will. And that's okay. You're not supposed to get it.
Yeah.
Because if you got it, then you have mental illness probably. So, I said, but we were leaving one of the family parties and he looks at me and he's like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah. I said, I'm attacking myself and I need to stop and I'm trying. So he did his best to try to distract me and stuff like that. And, he doesn't necessarily, he accepts it at face value. Like if I say this is where I'm at, it's not a lot of questions like, why are you at that spot? Or, what made you do that? And he's not a lot of questions. It's more of, oh, okay, this is where you're at. No problem. Let's work with where we're at.
Yeah.
So, which is great and very helpful. So, he kind of got me laughing and got me out of my head and got me out of my own way, which was good. But it's just been a lot of extra work and a lot of extra stress. And I think the combination of that, so changing my routine, as well as the inconsistency, I guess is the right word for in my meds, has kind of led me on a little up and down, up and down for the last couple of weeks. But, that's to be expected.
Yeah.
Given the set of circumstances, it's to be expected. So, but yeah, so that's what I've been working through. One thing I will say, like my win for the week is, I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of word it, but my win for the week is in the situations that I ran into at work is accepting people for who they are and where they're at in the moment and not put expectations on them, if that makes sense. Yeah. I worked very hard to, when a woman called me and said, she's like, I'm sick, I can't come in. That's it. I just took it for face value. I'm like, okay, this is where we're at. This is how we're going to attack this and be done with it. Some people took another tact and they're like, well, should have come in and all of that stuff starts brewing, but I wouldn't do it. I'm like, no, I am taking her at her word. I'm taking this at face value. I am not reading into anything. I am not, certain circumstances came up where things were said, but I was not privy to them. So I'm not being a part of that.
Yeah.
Great.
You know what I mean? It's like, I am rising above all of the chatter and being of service and doing what I feel is the right thing to do for me.
Right. And that makes sense because you can't change it. You're not going to bring her in. You can't make her come in. So really at that point, the best thing to do is go, well, here's the situation. She's not going to be here. This is what has to be done. And you just do what you can do, you know, and really to just sit there. I know most people, it's that they resent that they're going to have to do more work, you know, or that someone else gets a day off and they don't, you know, cause it's not fair. And, you know, because I don't know why we're taught from the time we're little kids, life isn't fair, but it's the one lesson that we cannot as people understand.
No, we cannot accept that one.
And
I just loved how that's just like going right into action.
Yeah.
You know, it's because it's the thing that I've just gotten so much more satisfaction out of work is if somebody comes up and says, okay, you know, something went wrong or blah, 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 is rather than get into judgment on what happened, blah, 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 is just go, okay, let's go fix it.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be okay. Let's go make it right. To just get right into action, because once you take all that other stuff that you could have gotten into, like, cause I've had that same thing where it's like, well, I wasn't there, so I don't care what so-and-so said.
Right.
You know, like that kind of stuff. Once you push all that stuff aside, all you're left with is the action in the end.
Yeah.
So might as well just get to it.
Yep.
You know,
it's similar to like something happening in the house and so, you know, like who did this? And it'll be like you know, the refrigerator got left open and it's like, you know, at this point, it doesn't matter. Like shut the refrigerator door, you know, I mean, maybe say to everyone, hey, make sure the door gets shut. But other than that, it's like that's part of the action though, is that's to help prevent it from happening again. Just shut the door and move on. Like going around to each person, did you leave it open? Did you? Well, I know I didn't. Did you? You know, it's like, why do we have this need to blame people? Like we have to go burden someone. You know, we have to do this. And it's like, no one put a burden on you other than shutting a door or doing, you know, like sometimes, yes, I understand, you know, like if someone could have got physically harmed by something, that's a little different. You know, sometimes people need a better reaming to make sure they understand how important that is. But most of the stuff that we get mad about, it's like, it's so routine like that. It's like if someone calls in and says, I'm sick, I'm not coming in. Oh, okay. I mean, you know, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You can't change it.
You got to get on with the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And, you know, if there is some sort of investigation that is required, it can still be done.
Right. Let that party handle it.
Frankly, it is none of my business.
Also
that's the other part of it.
It's not my job.
Well,
nor is it my business.
Well, and
my business.
The other side too is it's like if you do that to someone else, I mean, it's going to be done to you.
Yeah.
You know, do you want everyone questioning you and talking about you? And I know a lot of people might, well, they do anyway. It's like, yeah, but when you go out of your way to be that person that every time someone calls off and you're they should have came in. I would have came in. And then that time you don't come in, everyone's like, well, yeah, I thought they always came in. You know, like it's, these things happen. And it's like, you don't want to be treated that way. Don't be that person, you know?
Yeah.
I was rewarded for all of my hard work in the arena. I was rewarded because one of the people said, that's why I come to you. I like talking with you.
Love
you always
that.
make me feel better.
There you have it.
Yep. Like you always put a silver lining on things and you always make me feel better. And that was my reward.
Yeah. And that's the person that I want to be at work. I want to be the person that people feel like they can come talk to me.
Yes.
And because I've seen the opposite. I've seen where people are afraid to go talk to people, where people are afraid to call in sick. And it's just like, that's why we have sick time. That's why we have vacation time. We have that. You have it, you use it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what's going on with us. We'll do just fine this day.
Right. Exactly.
It's not personal, but for some reason people want to make this stuff personal. I just don't get it.
It's like I said, it's like people just cannot stand that they've got to work and someone else doesn't. It's realistically, I'll tell people, like they'll be like, hey, what do you do for a living? And I'll be like, well, you know, I'm currently trying, you know, been trying to deal with getting on disability so that I can, you know, get my treatment better to where I can eventually re-enter the workforce or something, or I'll just say I'm unemployed. And it's always, oh, you're so lucky. And it's like, no, I'm not, you know? And it's like, you just think because I don't go into work that my day is just, you know, roller coasters and puppy dogs. And that's not the case. And it's kind of like this. It's like so many people think, well, they're fake and they could have came in, you know, and it's like, it's such a backwards mentality. If I tell you I'm sick and can't come into work, that should be enough. I shouldn't have to.
Because it is.
Yeah. Now, granted, if it's 2-3 days, yeah, okay. Now we need a doctor's note. That's not unreasonable. Yeah. But one day, if I call you, I mean, maybe I just am having a fatigue day. Maybe I just mentally can't come in.
Mental health day.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things. You know.
I don't want to get sick.
Right?
So
that's the other part of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you are sick, stay
home. Yeah.
I'm happy to do a little extra work and maybe stay a couple hours overtime, which I get paid for, you know, then to give you come in, get me sick, and then I have to take a day out of my life.
Or more
to feel better.
Right.
It's like, no.
Exactly. And that's the thing is it's, you know, it's just that mentality right there. It's, you know, it's like if you're sick and you can't come into work, or if you're contagious, like stay home. Don't go potentially infect 10 other people, you know, to where it's going to dress. Like Jen was saying, you know, like at her work, like this day this person was sick, the next day this person was sick. You know, it's like this thing chains through, and then sometimes it'll kind of start over, you know, or whatever. Or it's left everybody weak to where they're not as efficient at work or whatever. And it's like, just accept that someone can't come in, appreciate the fact that they're not trying to infect everybody else with their sickness or their bad attitude. You know, because if they come in and they're sick, they might be grouchy, or maybe they don't work as hard, and then you resent them because they're not doing anything. You know, it's just so much easier to just go, okay, and just
do it.
You're going to be there doing work either way. You know, like you were going to be at work that day anyway. You know, so just accept it, do what you can do, and you know.
And I think ultimately, like, all that matters is how did you feel at the end of the day? Well, it sounds like you felt pretty good, Jen.
Yeah.
You know,
right?
It feels like, you know, you stepped up, and it's like that. I mean, here you had some lapses with your medicine, but it obviously didn't take such a toll. I bet it would have been more of a toll if you would have had a totally different attitude towards work.
Yep.
But you were hitting everything on positive cylinders right off the bat. So it's like you had built in the natural defense that I have just, you know, it's been my goal is if I can at least have this attitude during the day, then when something does happen, like, I've talked about this. I forgot to take my decongestant or whatever, you know, I don't start to lose my mind about it, or whatever it is, or I forget something, you know, that just a life thing. Yeah. It's not as bad because I started the day with the best of intentions and tried to continue it through the day.
Yep.
Exactly.
It also allows you to keep a better work ethic, because when you're mad and resentful, you're going to be spending energy into, you know, being mad and resentful. And
exactly.
Whereas if you're just like, well, you know, it's whatever, and you just kind of move forward with it, you can put all of your energy into your work instead of into worrying about what this other person is doing, you know?
And let's be honest, we only have so much reserve of tolerance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I want to try to start my day as full up as possible. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is dependent on what happened the day before.
True. And it's so much easier. It's so much easier to deplete it than to replenish it. You know, replenishing takes much longer. Kind of like your phone. Feels like you no more start your phone and the battery dies. But then it's like sometimes you go to charge it and you're like, geez, what is taking it so long? You know, it's very similar with your body.
What are you more likely to get stuck in your head about? Your positive, great attitude or your negative attitude?
Right.
I don't know about you guys, but me, I will dwell on the stuff that I think I should have done differently.
A positive
attitude.
Need
that.
A positive attitude has never kept me up at night.
Exactly.
Except for maybe,
Mike, we're done.
Yeah, I was like, except for maybe when I had, you know, the manic situation when I went on a medicine.
Yeah.
Because I've seen positive mania keep Jen awake.
Positive mania is not necessarily the best.
But that's a different story, though. Yeah. You weren't choosing that, though. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Great story, though. Thanks for sharing that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And just as a kind of aside, for the audience out there, that squeal was because one of the bugs did try to get me from behind. He happened to be crawling up the arm of my chair. And the boys did not give me forewarning like they said they would if the bug was trying to kill me.
I couldn't see it. So
he was in stealth. He was stealth mode.
It was stealth mode.
That little bug is Deaky and Sneevious.
Oh. So that squeal, everybody, that's the closest thing I have to a scream. I don't actually scream in my life. For some reason, I do not scream. I squeak and squeal. So there you go, folks. That's Jen's scary squeal.
I should isolate that.
Yes.
We need that on a soundboard, you know?
It's nearly as funny as the eeps. Because I do the eeps instead of screaming. I kind of shut down the scream, so it's literally eep. But, anywho, I digress. How are you guys? How was your week then?
I have one theme, and it's expletive daylight savings.
Yeah, you know, rough for me too.
Have we talked about that on this show before, Jen? Or Heno? Do you remember? I don't remember ever really talking. So. But
I don't know, but it messes with me bad.
It messes with a lot of people, and it significantly affects people at work and just in life. Because that hour, it's not just that hour switches, but it's also that mentally you go, I lost an hour of sleep. You know? So it kind of sets you down a path of fail. You know? So
yeah,
anyway,
and to top it off, last Thursday, we needed to do an upgrade of one of our major pieces of software we use at work. And it was a major upgrade and everything's different. And so I'm already just feeling not myself.
Right.
And I'm having to learn new software. And it's just, there was this one point where I'm just sitting here going, I don't have the braining ability right now. I just don't, you know, and I was off. Today was the first day I felt okay, you know, because the last few days, it didn't matter if I got good sleep or bad sleep. I just felt I was off. And it was wild how one of my coworkers, he started being very sensitive to our facilities manager again, you know, and I'm like, that's all you, man. That's all you. The guy has said nothing. You are reading into it. That is on you, you know, and I kept reminding him that. And the reason, and I said, the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm noticing it too, but I'm making a choice. If there's something wrong, it's up to them to say something, not for me to read it out of them.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to spend my day wondering. I'm just going to keep doing what I do. And until I hear otherwise, I'm just going to go with the faith that this is the right thing to do. And then at one point, you know, we just said, and by the way, you know, I just said, daylights. He's like, yeah, I kind of felt like maybe something was wrong. And I'm like, man, you're in everybody else's emotions. Get back into your own, you know?
Yeah, right.
and we do it. I do it, you know, I do it jokingly and out of honest love because we're both like that. We're hypersensitive to other people.
Okay. Yep.
That's a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
It's
like I mean, I know I have a tendency to do it, but it's still a choice if I want to. I can, you know, it's not easy. It's taken me a long time to learn that, you know, I don't need to take on what I think somebody else is feeling about me or my quality or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just with the whatever the daylight savings thing. Maybe I'm just blaming it. I don't care. Whatever it is. It could be all psychosomatic for all I know.
Well, you know, it's funny. I had a conversation with someone the other night too. And her and I were talking about how Monday was just a really awful day for a lot of people. And we were talking about how, because Monday was the 13th, you know, and we were talking about, and I've seen other people point this out, that it's weird that people hate Friday the 13th so much, but they don't hate Monday the 13th. You'd think people would hate Monday the 13th more because it's a Monday versus a Friday. At least on Friday the 13th, there's a weekend in front of you. Monday the 13th, the rest of the work week is still ahead of you, you know? And her and I were just talking about, like, and I'll get into mine in a minute here, but it's like, I wasn't feeling real good that day. She I forgot what it was. She had something happen that just kind of, just messed with her day. And she felt like everything she did all day was basically just, just failboating everywhere. And, she said a friend of hers had something go wrong. It was just like person after person that I talked to that day. It just seemed to be a funk day for everybody that I was talking with. And, so it was, we were joking about that in daylight savings about how it's, must be the combination of the two, or, like you were saying, it's like, clearly we know it isn't. It's just life was lifing people, and we noticed it because more people within our circle were lifed by life that day.
Yeah.
It isn't that the day actually did it. It's just how it happened. Yeah. Mathematically, the law of probabilities, blah, blah, it's going to happen sometimes. And, but it's still fun to blame some arbitrary thing for, like Mother Nature. And it's like, no, it's the weather system that repeats itself every so often, like those kind of things.
It's happened.
So, yeah.
No, a friend of mine is named Tuesday. And when asked about, where she got her name from, she responded, well, nobody likes Monday. So to which responds back to her was, well, everybody loves Friday.
Yeah.
To which she responds back, but Friday's a male's name.
I don't know for sure that it is. The only day of the week I know that it would be a male day would be Thursday, if you buy into that. But, the rest of the days I don't think were named after people, but Thursday was.
Know.
Yeah.
But she said the Friday is a boy's name, duh.
All
and
right.
I'm like, okay, fair enough.
All right.
But
see, if someone's named,
you're talking about days of the week, make me think of her.
If someone's named Tuesday, my first guess would, well, it depends on the age of the person. Because if their parents are old enough to be Skinner fans, that would be my guess to where Tuesdays come from. Otherwise, I'd be like, 30s. Oh, huh?
She's in her mid-30s.
Okay, so, yeah, that'd be the right age then. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So, sorry, I know, back to your daylight savings.
Oh, no,
sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I had on that.
Oh.
And then it was funny is I wanted to work on, I'm like, all right, on to the next song. And I have a bunch of song ideas that I've never finished. And they were all having to do with, like I've shared this before, there's songs I want to finish that have had to do with when I was either, in a funk, or had to do with, when I was in emotionally not a good place, or that kind of stuff. And lyrics are not always easy for me. And for some reason I was just on fire, and I was at work and these lyrics were coming to my head and I'm writing them down and I'm making the notes in my phone. And here's a great one. I actually started using my technology to support me. Shocking as it is. So like when I finished up Life Sucks, every time I used a microphone, I picked up my camera, I took a picture of which microphone I was using, what the settings were on everything. I put them into an album and I labeled it on my phone.
That seems like a very good idea.
It seems like a smart thing to do, right? Because heaven forbid, if I wrote it down, it would end up in a pile somewhere and I'd never see the piece of paper again.
Right.
But it's in the phone, right? And then I'm like, and I started taking a little, I write on sticky notes all the time. And I'm like, I have freaking notes in here. So I started writing the lyrics in the notes and stuff. I'm like, yeah, wow, actually utilizing it so it works for me instead of against me.
Yeah, I used to do the same thing, Henno. I would, it's like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store. I would still, even with a smartphone, I would still write down a list on, even if it was like 5, and I'm talking like a few things, I still use a full-on written list because just as we run out of things, we just put it on a list. So it's just, I'm not going to sit down and retype that whole thing. So, but for like, when you're going, you need like milk, bread and whatever, apples or something. It's like, why don't I just put that in my phone? Why am I bothering to write this down? It's like,
Yeah, it's funny. So I'm feeling really good. And I sit down and I clear out a template and I'm ready to get to work. And I have a drum beat in my head that I cannot find anywhere. I'm just like, I spent it wasn't all night long, but I spent, let's just say chunks. I decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do some work. And like 2 hours later, I'm like, I've got nothing. And I just kept scouring, and I'm looking for loops or anything that I have that has this drum beat, and nothing has it. So I'm like, all right, now I'm going to create something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have software to do it, but I've never used it before. So there was one point last night where I literally had my head in my hands. And I was just like, why won't it make a sound? just please make a sound. I'm like looking for instructions, nothing. Evidently people just intuit. You got to love it when the product tells you that you can intuitively,
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, my intuition is not working. I'm intuitively knowing nothing here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was funny. But I don't, it's a lot of times I beat myself up over that stuff, that I wasted time, or I didn't, or I didn't get something done I wanted to. And it's just like, no, it's just, I'm going to find it, and I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep working on it, and it feels good. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's funny. Like my brother does, he sells stuff on eBay, and he takes a bunch of pictures of stuff. Right. And, like there's times like I'll be over at his house helping him, and he'll be looking for a picture, and he'll spend an hour looking for the picture. I'm like, dude, you could have taken more. And then if you find it later, who cares? You delete it or whatever at that time, So, I'm glad at some point you didn't, I'm glad at some point you recognized, okay, I haven't found this. I'm just going to create it versus like spending 5 days trying to find it, beating yourself up and having it eat at you.
And I need to learn to do these things because I do have a tendency to let stuff bring me down, and then I give up, and I just throw my hands up and I walk away. And I, kind of life for me these days is about these things that are adverse to me. If I can get past adversity in my life in a more constructive fashion, I think I'll be a more effective human being. So, these are little tests, because the better I get at this, it's going to apply to everything else in my life.
Yeah.
And because it's not going to be easy. I get easily frustrated. And so
even if you just at some point were looking for it, can't find it, and you just go, even if you saw that, and I'm not saying you did, but even if you saw that as a minor setback or a loss or whatever at the time, it's like, yeah, but it's not life altering. You could sit down and do that beat. Because it's in your head. You can, and how to apply it to something. It's not like losing something and going, man, I don't remember how I did or how I wrote it, or I don't, that's a whole different story. And from an artist perspective, and doing graphic design stuff, I've had that happen, and I understand fully how that feels. That is, that is like a punch to the gut, because you're like, I don't remember what I did to make this, or, but if it's something you can still replicate, it's like, it's not really a loss. It's just, it's a step backward, but it's an easy one to recover from. So don't see it as a loss. Just like you were saying, it's like, you just were like, all right, sat down to do the work,
Yeah. It's just, this is the challenge for the week, and that's fine. And I'll get past it. It's,
instead of being down for 3 or 4 days about how you lost something or couldn't find something.
I suck and I'm useless, and why do I do this? Especially when it's a passion.
Yeah.
It's about the journey. It's not about the destination.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly. And that's why I think, because and this is the other part that, and I've shared it and we've talked about it, is don't avoid the detours, because I might get a detour. This might lead me into a different direction that I didn't even think of.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll hear something that I hadn't even thought about. So I'm trying to keep an open mind and not get so locked in, and just try to do things differently, and keep in with my my word for the year, just action. Is just keep moving forward, whatever it is.
Not to mention, if it's something you did in the past and then you have to redo it now, like you were saying, that detour, like you're not the same person you were maybe when you recorded the first thing. So maybe, like you said, it's maybe you put down a better version this time, or you're happy with it this time or whatever. But, creatively, like you said, it's the same thing. I've done that too, where I've lost something and had to sit down and redo it. And then when I'm done, I'm going, I'll go, I like this better. Like, I think I did it better this time. And it's less, then you look back and go, man, what was I frustrated about? That gave me a creative opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
I had a weird thing happen that just jumped at me last Thursday in my men's group.
Yeah.
I walked in and we had a small group of guys that night, and I was one of the first people to share, and I just had this overwhelming feeling of gratitude for being sober, and I had this weird thing about, like, we're actually you have a bunch of men sitting in a room together not doing something, right? Like, we're getting together to not do something.
Yeah.
I mean, we are getting together to do something, but you know what I mean? Like, it kind of hit me where I'm like, we should be out there getting drunk right now. But you know what we're doing? We're talking about our lives, what we can do better, what we're grateful for, what we're happy for. And you know, I just shared about that. I was just like, I'm looking forward to doing some traveling. I am looking forward to seeing my friends. I'm looking forward to, you know, the podcast and all this stuff. And I just had this overwhelming feeling of gratitude, and I just talked about it and you know, and just as of gratitude. But what was weird afterwards is the next person after me he's a newcomer that's just taken off. I mean, he gets this amazing service opportunity on Sunday. There was last Sunday. He wanted to go skiing. Like, and he was trying to figure out how he was going to go skiing, but instead he ended up doing service to other drunks. He was in the hospital helping 2 people that were literally hooked up to IVs. Wow. And he's a newcomer. He grabbed one of our locals that's just a pillar of awesomeness. And he had Jose with them. And the funny part about it is we had the greatest laugh because Ken is an Aussie. And so these guys on IVs got to have a guy with an Australian accent and a guy with a Spanish, you know, from Mexico. Well, you know, just laugh. I'm like, it's like a joke. An Aussie and Mexican walk into a hospital.
Yeah.
You know, but awesome. It was weird. I felt this shame afterwards, though, because I mean, this guy shares about this just unbelievable opportunities and experiences, and I was sharing how awesome my life is.
Yeah.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
You know, but I'm just like, you know what? But that's how I felt. I felt grateful for being sober and for getting the opportunities to do all these things. And that's just where I'm at in life.
And as we've talked before, it's not, you know, whether it's your difficulties or your successes in life, it's part of the best way to be you and to be happy is to not compare, you know, like to not, well, I'm not. No, there is, you know, an opportunity for you to potentially reflect and am I being enough am I doing enough to where.
That's what it did.
Yeah.
And that's right. That's what it did. I went, okay, am I putting myself in the places where I could be of most use?
Yeah.
You know, and I need to look at that. You know, do I need to take on, a couple more, you know, could I take on some more responsibility? We have a hotline. We have a phone hotline. That's how Ken had the hotline. That's how it happened. I've never done the hotline. It's just never been my thing. Yeah. I've always been involved with kind of like the business end of things. Been happy to do that, but I've never gone to that other side of it. And it's like, well, maybe, you know, maybe that was the message, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
Like maybe it's my turn to pick up the phone line. Who knows, you know?
Yeah.
And then the last thing I just wanted to say was Sunday happened and 48. Whew.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Happy birthday, sir.
Yes.
That one's like, wow.
Yep.
It does
really? I start thinking about like other people that I knew from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When, you know,
right
me now.
Yeah. Thinking about when you used to look at that age and go, man, that's so old. And now you are that age. And it's like, I don't feel as old as I thought it was then. You know?
You were
exactly.
Yeah.
So funny. So
amazing how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. So I with that I'll pass. As we like to say in group.
Right. So just to be clear, your win for the week was the music, right? And such.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, not getting discouraged and you know.
I just wanted to make sure that you covered what you wanted to cover with that too.
Yes, so, thank you.
Yeah. So mine, you know, I mentioned last week about how you know, it was my first day back in therapy. And you know what I tend to do after I go to therapy is it's not something to where I only sit there And, you know, a lot of times when you're in the moment in therapy, it's about like just kind of, bleh, you know, just get it all out of your system. And I listen to, you know, the feedback and I do that. But then the rest of the week is applying it. And also I take time to kind of look back at what I said and what was said to me to kind of, you know, look for other things that I can grow from, you know? And it's not that I get obsessed with it, but I just kind of, I keep it in my brain. And also it allows me to kind of plan for the next visit, you know, what I'm going to talk about as I'm going, because I'm essentially always making a mental checklist of things I want to talk about, you know? And also sometimes it makes me go, you know, like, that's silly, put that away, you know, because it's, you realize that you don't need to talk about one thing or another, you know, because you're like, I can work through that or whatever. But it's been interesting because I talk so much to her about my anxiety and how I feel that lately that's been more of a beast in my life than the depression has. And the depression's still there, but the anxiety's really been ramping up. And for anyone who doesn't know, I think I talked about it a little bit last week, but I have real bad anxiety in cars, especially when I feel enclosed or if I'm in a car for a long time. But just being in a car, I'm never comfortable. And it gets worse the longer I'm in the car. And, you know, and that was one of the things I talked to the therapist about, because when I first went in there and she asked me, you know, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want this to help you toward, basically? And one of them was like, I would eventually like to get my license, even if I don't drive a lot. It's just the idea to know that if I need to go to the store for something, or I want to go 2 minutes up the road to a Taco Bell and get food, I can just do it. I don't have to go, oh, well, no one's awake, or no one, you know, whatever. I don't get trapped wherever I am, you know, because that adds to my isolation, you know, because there are days where I do feel like I'd like to get out of the house, but nobody's available. And I don't want to pay for an Uber or something like that, you know, so I end up staying in, and that adds to the isolation and those feelings, you know. So anyway, as I'm talking to her about all this, it was interesting because the week before, you know, I went out a couple of nights and felt pretty good the rest of the week. This past week, I went out on Thursday and Saturday, and by the end, like, I actually was at a bar on Saturday, and I had to go outside for a little bit because I felt my anxiety climbing. Because, you know, as the night goes on at a bar on a Saturday, you know, it gets busier, and there's music going on the jukebox, people were talking, and it just got louder and louder. And plus, as it got more and more full, you know, I'm being kind of attacked from multiple ways with anxiety, you know, because essentially the room's closing in on you as well as getting louder. So it's constant stimulation. And, you know, so I went outside for a few minutes with Tony, you know, talked with him, just, you know, joking around, and did some breathing, and, you know, about froze to death. And, but that cold air always helps me. I'm very much, you know, cold air kind of helps snap me out of that. 'Cause, you know, the more people enter a bar too, it gets hot. So, you know, going outside, I got cooled down, got my breathing back under, and felt okay, and went back inside. But I realized that as the night went on, what was happening was I felt myself pulling more and more inside. Like I could feel myself, like, essentially, you know, curling up. Whether I was doing it physically or not, I don't know, but it felt that way, you know, to where and by the time I got home, I was so, like, burnt that, I mean, I had a headache. I just wasn't feeling right. And I mean, I got home around, I don't know, it was midnight, 12:30, 1, I don't know what it was, somewhere in that range. And I mean, I climbed right into bed and just turned everything off except my fan, and just laid in the dark and the quiet, essentially, because when I got home, I realized that I had gone past my comfort zone. And it's taken me, even today, I'm still feeling a little but Monday and Tuesday, I had no real energy. I was, like, just mentally exhausted. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that apparently not only did I go too far, but I must have gone way too far, because it's taken me almost 4 days to get over it. And it wasn't like, I don't think I was sick in any other way, because it was like, I still had my appetite and all this kind of stuff, but it was just, I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I haven't been on the internet as much, like on Twitter and stuff over the last few days. I mean, even at night, I haven't been watching as much TV. It's just like, it's just too much. Everything was too much for about 4 days. And, I want to bring this up because, again, first of all, I was talking about it in therapy. So when I go back, I'll be talking to her about this, because usually it takes more than 2 nights to put me into that area. Usually it's like, I talked about it a long time ago. Remember when I did 4 podcasts in a week or 5 in a week, whatever it was. And then I was like, man, I was just done for 2 days. And it's like, that was putting myself out there way more than this was. So, it was really something, but, I listened, because where I am lucky that I don't work is that because of that situation, I was able to essentially just lie in bed for a few days, and just kind of do what I needed to do. Lie in bed, just not really do anything, not be stimulated by noise and TVs and all that stuff. So, I'm feeling better today, but I'm still probably not where I'd like to be, because I still feel kind of anxious even right now. But I wanted to bring it up because, we've talked before about going, recharging your battery, listening to your body and recharging your battery. And I just wanted to point it out to people, just how easy it is to just go past 0, essentially. And again, as I talked earlier in the show about how it's so much easier to deplete than to replenish, took me 1 night to deplete and 4 days to replenish, like and it's not that way for everybody, but when people tell you this kind of thing, like that they need some time to themselves or they need a recharge day or whatever, it's like, it's just good for you to begin with, but also to let people know that, this isn't, it's not made up. It's not faked. It sucks. I'd much rather be able to have just gotten up on Sunday and been like, hey, and just do whatever I wanted to do. But I woke up Sunday and I mean, I had nothing for the world, like I was done. Yeah. So,
but it's a learning experience. I mean, it sucks that you had to go through it, but every time you go through it is another opportunity for you to learn where your triggers are and, what's causing it. I mean, it would not surprise me if being overheated, really amped things up for you.
Yeah, it was definitely, a few things because, normally it's not all those things at one time. And that certainly didn't help that I was kind of being, the things that trigger my anxiety, I had like 3 or 4 triggers all being assaulted at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really difficult. And I highly don't recommend it. Now, in fairness, the part that bothered me the most about the whole thing was that I caught that it was bothering me a little bit, but I didn't catch that I was essentially as run down as I was, and that's a little weird. I've been pretty good about realizing I'm getting close and kind of going, okay, I need to leave or whatever. And I didn't. And it wasn't that I was afraid of asking or it wasn't anything like that. It was just, I totally didn't catch it, it just, and then boom, then all of a sudden it was like, like I said, I get home and the house is quiet, everybody else is in bed. I get home and I'm just walking around going, man, it was so nice to just have quiet, and, that's when I really was like, wow, I really pushed too far, and, as soon as I laid down in bed, that's when, like anything, it really all kind of washes over you at one time right then. It's like, wow, I am exhausted, not tired, but exhausted, so yeah, just want to put it out there as, warning for someone else to,
watch your emotional gauge.
Yeah.
You're going too low.
It's
an emotional hangover, what you experienced.
Yeah. If you feel like you need to go outside and do, your breathing exercises and stuff, start paying attention then, because when you get to where you need to do that, especially, your body is telling you, danger, essentially. So it's, start paying attention.
You probably remove yourself from that situation.
Yeah. And maybe I didn't stay out long enough, or maybe I needed to start, that's the thing. Like you said, it's an opportunity to learn going forward. It's like, okay, well, if I hit that point, maybe once an hour, I need to just step outside for 5 minutes, calm down, or step into the bathroom or whatever, go in there and just calm down, do some breathing, make sure that I'm okay. And, kind of take an inventory. Like, how do I feel? Do I feel like I need to leave right now? If not, okay, now I can go back in. If I feel like I need to leave, that needs to be addressed, Yeah. So,
right.
And the other thing, though, this week is a couple nights ago, and I've kind of needed to have my wisdom teeth removed for a while. Like, they're not painful, really. But, the last time I was at the dentist, he was like, you're probably going to need to get these removed because, he's like, it looks like you probably have a cavity forming on one of them, but they're not going to really do much to it because they'd rather just remove them because they're useless teeth. So the other day I was, moving my tongue in my mouth and I scratched my tongue and I was like, oh man. And I look in my mouth and it looks like it's not a big break, but it looks like, a little piece of my one wisdom tooth is kind of broken. And it's the one he told me the cavity was on. So I was like, oh man. So now I have to face making a phone call.
The dentist.
It's actually more than one phone call because I, first of all, have got to call my insurance because I need to make sure I need to see what they'll cover essentially. And then second of all, I need to find a dentist because I can't go to the one that I was going to before because he doesn't take this insurance. So, yeah. So I have 2 phone calls that are, going to stress me out. But on the other side of it, my wisdom teeth have bugged me off and on for, since I was, 12 or something like that probably. So it'd be kind of nice to have that aggravation out,
Absolutely.
I was trying to think as I'm talking here, like really what my win for the week was, because it's not felt like much of a win this week. I'll tell you that. But I don't really know.
I would say your win for the week, from what you've expressed, I think you need to give yourself more credit for recognizing what was going on, taking steps such as going outside, doing your breathing techniques, going through your motions of recognizing your anxiety levels.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have done more in hindsight. But hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
When you were in the moment, you recognized what you needed to do and you did it. And you weren't ashamed or embarrassed by it or anything. You just did what you needed to do for you. And that's pretty big.
That's true. Also bringing this up, to point out to people about how no matter how far forward you think you've made it, how easy you can slide backward, and that, even that, it's like, even though I know to kind of keep an eye on my breathing and my anxiety levels, it was so easy that it slipped past me, that again, it's like, well, I got to make sure that I focus on that when I go, the next time I go out, to make sure this doesn't happen again. I need to, you can't just trust that things will be whatever. Sometimes you got to keep, going through the steps in your head, like, am I, is this okay? Am I breathing right? Is it, and, again, that's where therapy comes in because they remind you of these things. That's where, it's doing the work, as we've talked about countless times on here. And, even when you think you're doing okay, sometimes you need to make sure you're taking that inventory to make sure you don't slide backwards, because it's super easy to do,
Absolutely.
And that's really, like, especially when we go out somewhere, whether it's, to a club or to a concert or something like that, we get so hyped up for the event that sometimes we forget to stop, like, just to take a moment before even walking in the door, is just to do that check-in and say, okay, where am I right now? meaning, am I here? Am I emotionally sound? Do I feel, fit that I can go into this and handle what is inevitably going to happen?
Yeah.
And sometimes even that's just enough, is to, like, you were obviously checking in with yourself.
Yeah.
And so many times it's so easy to just get so hyped up and excited, and also just get wrapped up in our friends, or if you're not feeling right, to say, well, I committed to this. I have to do this, even though I don't feel right. And we don't listen to our bodies. And that's when the gnarly crash happens. That's where you could have a full on panic attack.
True. Yeah.
Instead of just a moment of discomfort.
Yeah. Well, and you're right too. Also, like you were saying, a concert is a great example of this, or a club or something where you kind of, get amped. Because when your body starts releasing adrenaline, your body does the same thing when you're facing a fear. So, adrenaline can feel like anxiety, sometimes too. So, and, you got to make sure that you don't let yourself kind of get out of whack a little bit. Sometimes you might need, like you were saying, keep checking in, make sure you're controlling yourself a little bit, so that, you don't have, a situation that becomes a full on panic attack or something. So, yeah.
And keep your cup as full as you can get it, folks.
Yeah.
You can't pour out an empty cup.
Yep.
So,
that's what actually kind of triggered everything this week.
Yeah. I also love just the idea that I've heard shared, is this idea that I have a bank account, and I can keep making deposits into that. And so that I have that balance there to draw from. Mm-hmm. But if I'm constantly drawing from it and I'm not, replenishing it, I'm not making any deposits into the old, spiritual or mental health banking system.
Yeah.
It's not going to be there for me. And that is why these, that, like we talk about all the time, is the time to really do the work is when you are feeling good, because you're making that deposit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't wait until when you're feeling bad, because there's no transaction happening there.
Yeah.
You're pulling it out.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was getting at a little bit ago when I was talking about how I by waiting too long to keep doing the work, because I didn't, like you said, I didn't make sure that before I went in there, I didn't go through breathing and stuff. I didn't, as I was sitting there. Or a great example is usually what I do is anytime I go to the bathroom, I go through breathing exercises. Even if I don't need them, I'll just do it, and that usually works really well because, especially if you're drinking, because, once you break the seal, you're in there like every 20 minutes essentially, so, but whatever. It's like, but if every time I go in there, usually bathrooms are less noisy than a club or a bar or a concert or whatever, sometimes they're not, but most of the time it's a lower volume, so I'm usually able to kind of, just go through some quick breathing and I'm usually okay. And I wasn't doing that. And again, it was like, had I been doing that work, I probably would have been okay on the end of the night, or it wouldn't have been as bad, So, and that's the thing. Even making it so it's not as bad is a significant victory. It's a significant move the right way, because sometimes you just can't control it. Sometimes you're just going to, like depression, it's just, there are days that no matter what I do, I can get out of bed, I can try this, I can distract myself. It's just not going to help. It's just a depression day. There's just days depression wins, and same with anxiety or bipolar or whatever it is, that you're dealing with. There's just going to be days where it's going to, take the battle that day. But,
Exactly. So if you're hearing a bunch of noise in my background, I apologize. My puppy has found his toy.
I was going to say, that sounds like an animal with a bone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a piggy. It's a rubber stuffed piggy. Thankfully, the oinker is no longer working for us. And oinking.
Right.
But,
that's great.
yes. So I apologize. That's distracting for everybody, but
that's funny.
Yeah, he's getting some energy out.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
So with that, we kind of, we've roundabout talked about what we were going to talk about, and I think we kind of covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
Which is, try not to deplete yourself. Make sure you're making positive deposits in the mental health bank. When you're doing well, make sure you keep doing well and you keep up with your work, as we've talked about before.
Yep.
And it's so important because, as Brian learned and as you guys have heard me talk about and Hannah's talked about it, is that, as soon as you stop doing the work, that's when it all catches up to you. You find yourself needing it and you don't have it. So with that being said, do you guys have anything more you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think that was all I had.
We good?
I have an intention for the week.
All right.
Oh, what's the intention?
That my all of the sawdust and all the little parts and bits and pieces of my window construction has now been exposed because the snow has thawed.
Nice.
And I'm going to take this weekend and do those little things. I've decided I'm going to do those little things that I've been walking by for a while and just ignoring as I walk by them.
Nice.
Right.
I can appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot of things I've been walking by that I need to address.
I'm pretty sure everybody has little things they walk by that they should be addressing, whether it's a small, some dust that they could get off of a counter somewhere or just, getting on a treadmill for 5 minutes a day or something, like whatever it is. I'm sure we all have something.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, if you want to continue the conversation with us, folks, you can continue it with me by reaching out via Twitter I'm at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. You can also reach us on our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can reach us via email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. And you, Heno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Heno. You can locate me on Facebook at Heno Hider. And I just got binged at in my headphones, and wow, that scared me. And I have no idea why, because
that's pretty
that
awesome.
was hilarious. I almost had the moment like, did you guys hear that?
Great. Heno's hearing things.
And yeah, that's it.
Nice.
You can also reach the show at the Crazy Life Pod on Twitter, or you can reach me on Twitter at Stunami. The other podcast I'm on, Salty Language, can be found at salty_language or saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work, but we still have a good time. You can find, excuse me, geez, I'm having trouble here. I totally lost Rosette in my notes. There it is. Our Facebook page is at facebook.com/group/Crazy Life Podcast. And there's some really good references on that thing I've talked about plenty of times on here in the notes page. A bunch of numbers, link for NAMI.org, suicide prevention hotline number, all that kind of stuff. If you're looking for a therapist or help, there's some really good stuff on there. We're also part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. If you download us through iTunes, we ask if you could please leave us a review. That'd be greatly appreciated. Make sure you're subscribed. And, if you use other sources or even with iTunes, please share our show with your friends. So maybe we can, reach more people and maybe, help out them, or maybe they know someone that we could help or whatever. And I forgot what I was going to say. Something else there? Nope. Okay. I am not braining well anymore. It's all gone. It's all gone.
Daylight savings.
Yeah. This was Salty Language. I think the name of the show would be something along those lines. It'd be something anti-daylight savings. Wow, Oh, we're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind. We're just three people sharing our experiences and the tips that, have helped us over time. If you do need help, please reach out to a professional. Please don't self-diagnose, and please don't take this show as a replacement for therapy. We try to help. We try to give people ideas and guidance. But if you truly need professional help, again, we implore you, please seek out, go talk to your doctor, talk to a mental health care professional about that. And if you're feeling suicidal or homicidal, please tell someone in your support system. Tell your doctor especially. But if you aren't currently seeing one, you can go to like a hospital, tell them you're having a mental health emergency, make sure you're honest with them. Tell them what you're feeling, what you're thinking. And it doesn't have to be to where you're toward an end step either. It's like if you're planning things or thinking about suicide notes or how you would do these things, please reach out to somebody before it gets too far. There's tons of people out there willing to help you, people who've committed, their lives to helping people, or friends that want to help you. As we talked a few episodes ago, when Jeannie talked about the most frustrating thing for a friend is, that you want to help, but you don't know how to, or, whatever. So make it easier on your friends to help you. And also, I'll just say that, if you have the opportunity to reach out to somebody or be of service, please do that. It really can change someone's day, their life. You just never know how reaching out can make a difference. Tell friends that you appreciate them. I did a couple of times this week to people who reached out to me because I told them how I was feeling, emotionally exhausted, and they reached out to make sure I was okay, and I was like, I really appreciate that you do that. And, so, let people know that. Let them know that you care, that they keep, reaching out to you. That kind of stuff. Or like, Heno's story about the guys at the hospital, or, whatever it is. If you get an opportunity to be of service and it's, you're okay, your battery is full or full enough, at least, make sure that's there too. But, just try to put some good out in the world. All right, I think I'm done.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with everything you just said. And something else that just kind of came to me, make sure that you take a break from adulting once in a while.
It's true.
Because we all need it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this week, take a break from your adulting life and do something non-adult. Just have fun with it. So keep smiling, keep breathing, keep wiggling those toes, and have a great week, everyone.